Curtis looked Charlie up and down, sneered, and said, "You must be the worthless freeloader of a husband." Charlie replied calmly, "That's me." "What's it to you?" Curtis said coldly. "I heard you insulted Wendy. I'm going to make you pay for that, piece by piece." Charlie nodded and said dismissively, "No time like the present. If you've got a score to settle, let's settle it right now." Curtis thought that just by announcing who he was and throwing around a few threats, he could make Charlie grovel at his feet. He never expected a nobody like him to dare talk back like that. He was humiliated. He gritted his teeth and said, "Boy, you've got some nerve. Do you have any idea who I am? I'm Curtis Wilson." Charlie smirked. "A piece of trash like you isn't worth knowing." Curtis was furious. "I may not be from Orris Hill, but with my power, I'm a shark in these waters. You're the first person who's ever dared to speak to me like that." Charlie's smirk vanished, replaced by a cold stare. He looked Curtis dead in the eye and said word by word, "In Orris Hill, if you're a lion, you lie down for me. If you're a phoenix, you stay put for me. Because in all of Orris Hill, only I, Charlie, am a true prodigy." Curtis was momentarily stunned by Charlie's piercing gaze, but he quickly recovered and forced himself to calm down. He sneered, "Wendy was right. You're just some tattered silk with a big mouth. You, a true prodigy? That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. In my eyes, you're not even worth as much as an insect." After he finished speaking, he intentionally looked at Claire and said with a lecherous smile, "Miss Claire, I've heard so much about your beauty. Seeing you today, you've exceeded all expectations. You'll never have a future with a bum like him. You'd be better off with me. I promise I'll treat you well." Then he pointed to Wendy and said to Claire, "Wendy came with me, and I gave her $5 million in spending money. If you come with me, I'll give you $10 million. Claire said furiously, "You're disgusting." Curtis laughed. "I may be disgusting, but I'm very skilled in other things. I guarantee you'll be completely in love with me after you try it just once." Charlie couldn't take it anymore. He lunged forward and, without mercy, punched Curtis square in the face. The force of the punch instantly caved in Curtis's entire face. His nose was shattered. His 4 front teeth were knocked out by the impact. Suddenly, every eye in the entire venue was fixed on them. No one could believe that someone had dared to hit Curtis. He wasn't just the chairman of the Altura Group. He was also the chairman of the South Light Chamber of Commerce. His status was incredibly high, his power immense. Who would dare to attack him? Did this guy have a death wish? At this moment, Curtis was slumped on the ground with blood all over his face. He pointed at Charlie and shouted in pain and anger, "You worthless bum! How dare you hit me? I'm going to kill you!" Charlie said coldly, "I'm not just going to beat you. I'm going to ruin you." After speaking, Charlie put his foot right in front of his groin and sneered, "Chairman Wilson, you like messing around with women, don't you? From now on, you can say goodbye to all that for good." Curtis thought Charlie was about to crush his manhood, and his face went pale with fear. Even though he still thought Charlie was just some bum he could have taken care of later, right now, if Charlie really stomped down, he'd be finished as a man. Even if he had Charlie cut into 1,000 pieces afterward, what good would it do? What was broken would still be broken. As a man, especially a rich man with no shortage of women, he absolutely could not lose what made him a man. So he hurriedly begged for mercy. "Mr. Wade, we can talk this out." Charlie dangled his foot over him and asked with a smile, "What's wrong? Scared?" Breaking out in a cold sweat, Curtis nodded and said, "I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, I'm begging you. I made a mistake. Just let me go this one time." What Curtis was really thinking was that a smart man knows when to fold. First, he'd say whatever he had to protect himself. Then, he'd hire someone to kill Charlie and get revenge for this humiliation. Charlie didn't know exactly what he was thinking, but at that moment, he was like a cat playing with a mouse. He smiled and said, "Okay, since you're begging me to forgive you, then call me Dad. I want to hear it." The people watching were stunned, speechless. This guy was brutal. Making Chairman Curtis call a young man like him Dad? Does he have a death wish? Who does he think he is? Curtis's face was twisted with fury. With so many people watching, he had to call this kid Dad? He was old enough to be his father. If he actually did it, he'd be a laughingstock forever. But right now, his manhood was under Charlie's foot. No amount of power or influence could help him in this moment. Just when he was struggling to make a choice, Charlie smiled and said, "Oh, I didn't expect Chairman Wilson to be so stubborn. Fine, in that case, I'll make the choice for you. Say goodbye to your family jewels." With that, he lifted his foot, ready to bring it down. Sheer terror washed over Curtis. He wet his pants, a dark stain spreading across the floor beneath him. He cried out, "Dad! I'm wrong, Dad! Please, spare me!" After saying this, Curtis broke down completely. It was such a stupid mistake. Why hadn't he brought his bodyguards inside? If they'd been with him, how could Charlie have humiliated him like this? He was furious, forced to call him father. Right then, deep down, all he wanted was to kill Charlie. And him calling Charlie Dad sent a wave of gasps through the venue. The chairman of the Altura group, beaten by some young guy until he wet his pants, and then he called him Dad? It was just too shocking to believe. Seeing this, Wendy shouted angrily at Charlie, "Charlie, you actually dared to mess with Curtis? You're finished this time. You're a dead man." Curtis was also filled with shame and anger. He looked at Charlie and asked, "Are you satisfied now? Can you let me go?" Charlie nodded and said with a smile, "Okay. Since Curtis knows when to give in and called me Dad so obediently, then of course I have to keep my promise and not harm you." Curtis finally breathed a sigh of relief. But in the next second, Charlie sneered and said, "But, well, that part of you is definitely going to be useless from now on. I think instead of you staring at a mangled mess for the rest of your life, it's much more interesting to let you look at something that seems perfectly fine, but doesn't work at all." Curtis didn't understand. He subconsciously asked, "What do you mean?" Charlie smiled and said, "It's okay. I won't crush you, but I will make you useless." After speaking, Charlie gently tapped his toes on Curtis's lower stomach. A surge of core energy flowed out from his toes. Ever since finding the mystic texts, he had learned how to control his core energy. This stream of core energy directly severed the nerves in Curtis, making it impossible for him to function as a man. However, Curtis had no idea what Charlie had just done with that gentle tap. He didn't realize that he had just lost his ability as a man. In the future, he would only be able to look at his perfectly intact but completely useless body part and curse his fate. Right now, he was just furious and terrified, desperate to get out of there, call in his bodyguards, beat Charlie half to death, and then crush him in return. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and asked, "Can I go?" Charlie asked back, "Who are you asking?" Curtis said angrily, "Of course I'm asking you." Charlie asked again, "Then who am I?" Curtis's face turned incredibly ugly. He was a smart man. He knew what Charlie was getting at. He wanted him to call him Dad again. Damn it! This humiliation was unbearable. He said angrily, "Charlie, don't push it. You just said that as long as I called you Dad, you would spare me. Why are you going back on your word?" Charlie smiled. "Because I do what I want." After speaking, Charlie stared at him and said coldly, "If you don't say it now, then my foot might just slip on accident. And if that happens, don't blame me." Curtis was terrified. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, I'll say it." In his mind, he'd already lost all his dignity when he said it the first time, so what did it matter if he said it again? The most important thing was getting Charlie to let him go so he could get outside and call for help. So he pleaded again, "Dad, please let me go." Charlie nodded in satisfaction. Such a good boy. "Okay, Dad forgives you this time. Get out of here." Hearing this, Curtis scrambled to his feet and ran out with Wendy. As Curtis scrambled away, he left a disgusting trail on the smooth floor from where he had wet his pants. A pathetic sight for everyone to see. The onlookers couldn't help but laugh at his humiliating exit. Hearing their ridicule, Curtis felt like each laugh was another twist of a knife. In his haste, he tripped and face-planted hard. The room erupted in another burst of laughter. Wendy frantically pulled Curtis to his feet, and the two of them finally fled in a panic. Claire turned to Charlie, her voice filled with worry. "Charlie, that Curtis is a very powerful man. After you provoked him like that, what's going to happen when he decides to get revenge?" Charlie just smiled. "Wife, didn't I tell you? In Oris Hill, the lion will lie down for me, and the phoenix will bow. He has no chance to act arrogant here." Claire was still concerned. "I know you have friends in high places here, but that's not something you can always count on. What if they decide not to help you? What will you do then?" Charlie patted her shoulder gently and said, "My wife, you can doubt the whole world, but you must never doubt your husband." Seeing the absolute confidence on his face, Claire was startled. For the first time, she saw an air of powerful, world-conquering dominance on the face of the husband she had always thought of as a nobody.